Okay, thank you for coming today. My name is Ron. I'm going to try to explain yoga in a very practical way. What yoga is about, what it is aiming to accomplish, and of course try to give you some insight into the many dogmas and mystery surrounding yoga, because a lot of the traditional yoga has gone lost with the commercialization of yoga in the late 1990s. And so there are many people interested in yoga, many people practice yoga, but it's very hard to find a place where people can actually really learn about yoga. Now, I'm an old school yogi. I started with yoga and I studied yoga long before the commercialization took place. And at that time, yoga was relatively obscure. There were not many yoga schools, and generally, the general idea of yoga in society was that it's a little bit, it's for new age people, it's for hippies, it's for not everyday people kind of thing. That has completely changed, of course. Yoga is very, like I said before we had a conversation a little bit, that in this neighborhood there are so many studios and they're all packed. So there are many people practicing yoga, but my purpose is to bring yoga to the people as it was originally intended. Not just as an exercise, which is nice, everybody benefits from exercise, but there are so many other ways to exercise. It's just so sad that yoga has basically become an exercise with a veil of mystery that is actually fake. And the reason why I'm passionate about this is because yoga really makes a difference in people's lives. Yoga really, if yoga is done correctly, and I will explain correct as opposed to not correct or ineffective, if yoga is done correctly, it truly leads to awakening of consciousness. And that has such huge implications for the practitioner. It changes people's lives. And that's a change that will continue until the end. Once you open the lid of consciousness, that consciousness will continue to serve you, and it will continue to expand. Also in times that you're not so much occupied or engaged in yoga practice. It happens that sometimes you don't practice for a couple of months or sometimes even years because you're busy because of private circumstances or professional circumstances. But that process never stops. It may slow down a little bit when you get busy with other things, important things. And also you will always come back to it whenever the occasion occurs. You will grab the opportunity to get back to your practice again. So, having said that, what is yoga? And let me start with a question. How many kinds of yoga are there in reality? It's like 10 or 30 or... Yeah. 안녕하세요. Well, you know, the thing is, it appears that there are many different kinds of yoga, but yeah, bring yourself a meditation cushion. Originally, there is only one yoga. All the yogas that you see that appear to be existing are in fact a part of this one science of yoga. We call it the science of yoga. Because yoga is a science. A science of what? A science of life. That brings us to the next question. How old is yoga? Yes, that's what I believed too, years ago, when I started with yoga. Because when you open a yoga book, in the introduction it will say that yoga is 5,000 years old. But, you know, I came to Korea in 1996. Internet didn't exist yet. So I was reading some books and booklets and flyers. And whenever they explained about Korea and Korean history, it would say it's 5,000 years old. And then I connected the dots. Because is there a coincidence that yoga is 5,000 years old and Korean history is 5,000 years old? There is no coincidence there. So I asked myself the question, so does this mean that 7,000 years ago Korea didn't exist? It did, didn't it? So where does this number 5,000 come from? 5,000 years ago, mankind started recording history. People started writing things down. So our recorded history doesn't go back further than 5,000 years. But to understand the essence of yoga, you have to understand that yoga is as old as mankind becoming conscious. Can you follow that? Mankind, we were like animals before. We were not sentient beings. We didn't have consciousness. We didn't have the power to reason, intellect. But we evolved. And when we developed consciousness, we started asking questions. Then what were these questions about? In the first place, those questions were about the environment. We saw this red ball in the sky that is so hot in the daytime and disappears at night. And we wonder, what is that? And what does it do? Why is it there? And at night, there was this white ball of light that changed shape. And we then observed that it had a fixed cycle, changing shape. Our time is based on that. Our measuring of time is based on that. We started asking questions about the environment, but very importantly also about ourselves. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Why do I feel happy? But more importantly, we wanted to know, why am I suffering? Why do I feel pain? And throughout tens of thousands of years, this has become a very sophisticated science in which many questions are answered that all of us are curious about. When you read yoga books, the traditional yoga books, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the philosophic books, there is a huge obstacle there. Why? Because not only yoga books, all ancient books were written in symbolical language. Because ancient people did not have the power of intellect and reasoning like you and I have. All of us were subjected to 15, 20 years of compulsory education, which has given us a huge intellectual power. We don't realize it because that's just what we grew up with. But compare that with people just 300 years ago, 1,000 years ago, leave alone 5,000 years ago. People had a totally different way of understanding the world. People thought in symbolism, based on feeling, not rational thought. So when you open a book like that, you don't learn anything from it. It sounds mysterious. It sounds sometimes incredulous, unbelievable. And so we kind of like those kind of books. They are old books, they're serious books, but they do not really have a deep practical value. However, if you understand the practical meaning behind the symbolical language, they are treasure troves of insight in ourselves. Just amazing. Now, I studied yoga for 12 years with a no-nonsense teacher. And I became a no-nonsense teacher too. Because I learned to read between the lines, to understand what all that symbolism means. And it's just amazing how that gives us insight based on which we take control of our lives. And one of the big issues that yoga deals with, not only yoga, if you look at Eastern philosophy, Oriental philosophy, the underlying issue is suffering. Ask any Buddhist and they will tell you life is suffering. And any philosophical book, including yoga books, will tell you that life is suffering. Now, many people who consider themselves religious or spiritual, because they learn that life is suffering, they take a fatalistic approach. They say, well, life is suffering, I just have to suffer, because the holy books say so. And that is where we get it wrong. Because, yes, we suffer, but yoga gives us insight into why we suffer. And when you understand why you suffer, you can eliminate the suffering, or at least, to a very high extent, start taking control of that. And how does that work? Through consciousness. You cannot learn that from a book. You have to learn to connect the dots. You have to learn to put the pieces of the puzzle together. You have to develop insight into the law of cause and effect. And that's not something that you can learn from a book. That is something that you learn, that naturally develops actually when you practice yoga correctly. And it already starts with asana. You understand asana? Asana is the physical element of yoga. There are only few places where they do it correctly. Most asana these days is flow yoga. Power yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Vinyasa yoga, hot yoga, Bikram yoga. All these yogas are flow yogas. And there is nothing wrong with that as long as it's only just an exercise. But it does not offer the development of contemplative power. So I want to explain today why it is important. If you're really looking for answers, if you're really looking to take control of life, even your destiny, that is truly possible. if only you stick to the basics of yoga. And you know what the problem is with this? When I started yoga, I told you, yoga was rather obscure. And it was only fit for certain kind of people. Why was yoga obscure? There are several reasons for that. Because of dogma and mystery, people feel resistance. Because it's incredible. People don't believe what is being presented there. Especially when we start asking questions to the people who dole out the mysterious talk and the dogmatic theories. When we start asking questions and we receive answers, that often leaves us with more questions. Very unsatisfactory. We said, this is not for me. That is because the mystery and the dogma, mystery and dogma is only existent because of ignorance. What I tell you leaves you without mystery and dogma. Because I have developed the skill to explain everything in a practical way. And if you come with a question, I will answer that question in a satisfactory way. That is one reason why yoga in the past was rather inaccessible to the masses of the people. Another reason is traditional yoga is boring if you don't understand it. People are naturally restless without realizing it. So if you go to an exercise class where your teacher tells you to stand still and doesn't play music and doesn't talk about the muscles and the joints and the this and that and what modern teachers do these days, you practice in silence and you're not moving. That is not fit for everybody. It's only fit for those people that when they engage in yoga in this way, they feel what it is doing with them. They feel that it makes them calmer, feeling more sense of well-being just by doing it correctly, and develop answers to questions themselves because they develop contemplative powers. So this is the problem with the commercialization, not only of yoga. Remember what happened with pizza, or with cheese, or with beer. These were all traditional foodstuffs that when they became commercialized, then were manufactured in big factories, and it reduced the quality of the cheese, the beer, the pizza, or other traditional foodstuffs. It reduced the quality considerably. The same thing happened with yoga. To make yoga accessible to the masses, to commercialize yoga, to popularize yoga, they threw out all the valuable elements of yoga. The meditation, the talking about philosophy, which is so important to help people to transform and to grow. They threw out energy control, and they threw out just basic yoga. Practicing in quiet with a teacher who also knows how to be quiet. And you know why this is important? Modern yoga and traditional yoga are in fact total opposites. Why? Modern yoga is external. You understand external? Mentally external. Like aerobic. You play music so people feel the groove. The teacher is enthusiastically giving commands on how to move and what to do and to feel good, and that's external. Yoga, in essence, is internal. But how can you feel yourself? How can you even observe your thought processes? If there is music playing and a teacher that is constantly talking to you, even during the meditation, teachers talk. How can it, you cannot, they make an internal thing an external thing, and because of that it loses its value. But that is how they commercialized and popularized yoga. They reduce it to a mere exercise that is covered with a sauce of mystery and spirituality, but it's not real mystery and spirituality. So, how old is yoga? I haven't answered the question. It's as old as mankind becoming conscious. How old? We don't know exactly, but hundreds of thousands of years. From the moment that we started to become aware of ourselves and our environment, started asking questions, that is where it started. That is also why yoga is a science of life. Because it's about us and our place in this world. And it helps us to understand our needs, our emotions, but also our suffering and our pain, but also our happiness. Now, there's one yoga. It's the science of life. It's as old as mankind becoming conscious. What does yoga mean? What does the word yoga mean? Actually, yoga is not just the science of life, it's the science of the control of life. And that you find in the word yoga. What does the word yoga mean? Many people will say it means union or unity. That is not the meaning of the word yoga. If yoga is done correctly, it may lead to unity through yoga, because yoga means control. How? If you look at the word yoga, when you talk with Indian people, they usually don't say yoga. When Indian people talk about yoga, they say yog. They don't pronounce the A. Does this word sound familiar? Yog? Well, in Korean it means bad language. But in English, yeah, a yoke. In old Sanskrit, it was called yuj. And in Dutch, look at this. In Dutch, it's juk. Now, many people don't know what a yoke is, because no, a yoke is an appliance that farmers use they put it on a horse or an ox to harness their strength, their power, their energy. So, we were animals. We started to develop consciousness and intellect. We wanted to make life more comfortable. So we settled down and started agriculture. Agriculture means you have to work in the field, in the heat, in the cold, rain, and very hard work. You have to plow the field with your hands. You have to harvest with your hands. You have to carry the harvest home to the storage room, to the shed, with your small physical body. And try to imagine this. You have settled down with your family and other people. You have a small settlement. You have your field. And while you are working whole year round, you see in the distance in the prairie, you see these animals, big animals, 10 times as big as you are, 10 times as strong as you are. And they're doing nothing. They're just lying in the grass, eating some grass, eating some leaves from the trees and the bushes, and doing nothing all day, just sleeping. And you are sweating and breaking your back and exhausting yourself. So a smart farmer at some point thought, how nice would it be if that big mass of energy, strength, can help me do the work? So they had to catch one of those animals, befriend them, tame them, and find a way to make that animal work. That is where the yoke comes in. The yoke goes around the neck or the chest of the animal. They attach the leads from the yoke to the plow. And the farmer only has to control the direction of the plow. And the animal is doing the hard work. And when the harvest is done, he can exchange the plow for a cart with wheels, load 500 kilos of crop on the cart, and all he has to do is guide the animal home to the shed. He doesn't have to do all the hard back-breaking work anymore. So technically what is happening here is canalizing energy. That energy, from a technical point of view, was useless there in the tundra with the animal just doing nothing all day, basically. I'm telling this a little bit as a joke because, of course, that animal is just enjoying its life as it is. We canalized the animal's strength, so that we could produce more food, but also that it could make our lives easier. That is what yoga means. A human being is a limited amount of energy. There are ways that you can use to maintain the quality of your energy. You do that by eating nutritious foods, having enough rest, and doing regular exercise. But even though you have or possess good quality energy, that energy is limited. Now, throughout all those thousands of years of evolution, developing insight into the inner workings of the human being, we found out, or the ancient yogis found out, that we do not only lose energy through physical activity, through labor, through working in the field. In fact, we came to the conclusion that we lose huge amounts of energy by subconscious thought processes. And this is a huge issue in the world that we live in today, because real physical labor doesn't exist that much anymore. Because everything is done with machines. My grandmother did the laundry for the whole family by hand. Elevators didn't exist. Cars, nobody could afford. But now you have laundry, you put it in the washing machine, you push a button. You have a sink full of dirty dishes, you put them in the dishwasher, you push a button, and all the work is done. And yet, we live in a time One of the most heard complaints is people saying, I'm so tired. And they are not performing, we are not performing hard labor. So the question then is, why is this one of the most heard complaints? That is because of mental activity. Mental activity spends huge amounts, scatters huge amounts of energy. That leads to us feeling exhausted, even though we're not physically active. And the reason why we have no solution, if you go to a doctor, they will give you antidepressants instead of some good advice. The reason why we do not understand our fatigue is because we are not conscious of the cause of that fatigue. Because it is not conscious thought flow, it is subconscious thought flow that leads to doubt, it leads to anxiety, it leads to insecurity. These drain huge amounts of energy from us without us knowing that it is happening. This is where yoga comes in. It's interesting that there are these similarities, but the reason for that is that European languages, linguistically, are Indo-European languages. They have a connection that goes back thousands of years to the Indian subcontinent. That is why you see the word yoke in English it's pronounced the same, yoke. It's a yoke. In Sanskrit it's yuch, and in Dutch it's juk. We call it a juk. It implies control. Now at this point, many people are not interested anymore because I don't want to control, I want to be free. I want to enjoy my life. YOLO, you only live once. But the irony is, if we don't take control, we are prisoners, we are not free. If we don't understand what's going on inside our head, subconsciously, we are victims of our own mental and emotional activity because we don't know what's going on and we just suffer through it. So the discipline to practice something like yoga truly leads to liberation. That is where the liberation comes from. Liberation of what? Of being a prisoner of subconscious thought processes, because with time, it's not something that changes overnight, of course, but with time you develop very deep insight into what's going on under that roof. And that is where truly freedom occurs. Now, how does this work? Everything is energy. Have all of you done traditional yoga, like hatha yoga, or healing yoga, or yin yoga? How does that feel? Do you feel something different compared to when you do Ashtanga? Let me tell you, I started practicing yoga in 1984. I was just 19 years old, 20 years old, a little bit derailed as a young boy. We were playing basketball with a coach, all young boys. And at some point, when we were all sweaty and worked up, the coach said, "Hey guys, sit down." So we sat down in a circle, and he said, "Straighten one leg and bend the other leg and grab your foot." So what we did, of course, was this. He said, "Hey, stop moving. Just hold your foot stretch up your back and breathe. And don't move. And so we did that. And I started feeling something I had never felt before. We went through a couple of exercises, and I thought, wow. And one of the guys said, "Hey coach," tough guy, "Hey coach, what the hell is this?" Because it was a little bit weird. You never experienced anything like that. And the coach said, that is yoga, my friend. 40 years later, I connected with him a while ago. And I told him how grateful I am. Because what happened is after taking a shower, I went to the library. Internet didn't exist yet. If you wanted information, you had to go to the library. And I went to the Y section and I found books on yoga. And one book in particular that was titled, Teach Yourself Yoga. There's the Reader's Digest series of the Teach Yourself thing. There's a whole range of those books. Teach yourself Thai cooking, teach yourself yoga, teach yourself gardening, all kinds of teacher. And I came up with the book of the Teach Yourself Yoga, and it became my Bible. I kept extending that book for a year. It was so precious I didn't want to bring it back. But it's a library, you have to bring it back. So I just kept extending it. What happened is I found that book, I started reading, and it proposed a certain routine. I started, that very same evening, I started practicing yoga. And from that moment on, every evening I've been practicing yoga. And it totally changed my life. And that is the reason why still, 40 years later, I cannot teach yoga in another way, even if that can make more money. Because it doesn't work. I want to help people in the same way that I was helped with yoga, by doing it right, doing it in the traditional way. And what made me fall in love with yoga was that nice feeling that occurs every time you come out of an asana and you close your eyes and you take a deep breath and you say, and you feel it through your veins, you feel it through your body and your mind. You become so calm. You recognize this? This is something that does not happen when you do the modern forms of yoga. And like I said before, I'm not rejecting modern forms of yoga. I'm not negative about them. They just do not offer us the same benefits as traditional yoga is meant to do, meant to give. And the interesting thing, if you think about the commercialization of yoga, you can look at it in a very negative way. They threw out all the valuable aspects of yoga, the meditation, the philosophy and what have you. I look at it in a positive way. Because it has opened the door to many people starting yoga maybe in a commercial way, who then slowly find their way through experience, through trying other studios, through the internet, of course, doing searches and what have you, and finding out that there is more. And in the end, they come to a school like Magic Pond, hoping to find answers there. So it has opened the door to many people who otherwise never would have had an interest in yoga. Now, that nice feeling that you get, actually to explain yoga, you have to understand that everything is energy. We talked about energy when explaining the yoke principle, the control principle. We talked about energy when explaining how people find themselves exhausted while not being physically active, scattering energy because of mental activity. But energy can have different qualities. If you look And a little bit an extreme example is nuclear power. 원전, nuclear power. Nuclear power, you know, a nuclear power plant, it takes like 12 years to build because it's very complex. Very complicated, very complex. Why is it so complex? Because they have to put so many things into place to do what? To control energy. But if that energy is controlled, a nuclear power plant can power 1 million homes with electricity and heat. Now, what happens if the energy is not controlled? Disaster, huge disaster. Fukushima, Chernobyl. So it's a little bit an extreme example, but this is the human being too. When a human being canalizes their energy, all kinds of wonderful things start to happen. We start to function intellectually. We develop the control to take a certain direction by choice in life. But like with the nuclear power plant, a human being without control tools becomes a disaster, self-destructive, not able to keep a job, not capable of maintaining relationships, no control over alcohol, drugs, what have you. So it's all about energy, it's all about control, or the lack of it. So control is not boring, it's actually very powerful. Another example of energy is a laser beam. A laser beam is a concentration of energy that is so powerful it can cut through steel, reinforced steel. It can cut through meters thick concrete. But it's just energy. How is that possible? Energy, when not canalized, is not powerful. Is not very useful, like the animal just roaming around in the prairie. But the moment you put a yoke on it, the moment that you canalize it, and with a laser beam it's canalized to the extreme using prisms and what have you, that energy becomes so powerful it can cut through steel and concrete. So energy can have differing qualities. Now, it's not that complicated because you can easily relate to this. There are 3 conditions that we consider in yoga. That is tamas, rajas, and sattva. In short, rajas occurs when you move. Any kind of movement. In the morning, when you wake up, you start moving, rajas condition occurs, which is fueled by, this one is new, I don't know why it doesn't work, which is fueled by Shakti energy. Tamas occurs at the end of the day, when you're tired. The sun goes down, the flowers close, the birds fly to their nest, you start to yawn and you prepare for the night. Tamas, which is fueled by Shiva energy. Sattva, that is the important condition for the development of the yogi. Sattva is harmony. Sattva is the condition that is rare, is the condition where tamas and rajas, or Shiva and Shakti, are relatively balanced. The problem is, we are only human. We either move or we rest. There is no in-between. So this is the pattern of the human being. We wake up in the morning, Shakti energy rises, and we become rajas. Then we become tired, maybe around 11 o'clock after having done some work for a couple of hours, and you become hungry. You become a little bit tamas. And this is the pattern of the human being. Very simplified, of course. So there is no harmony, there is no balance, because either we move or we rest. To find sattva, we need to take control. To generate nuclear energy, we need to control. To create a laser beam, we need to control. Sattva is equivalent to the nuclear power or a laser beam, just not that dramatic. This is the reason why modern yoga doesn't work. Because you either move or you rest. So when you do power yoga or Ashtanga yoga or Vinyasa yoga, you're in a rajas condition, just like when you do aerobic or cycling or walking or swimming, any kind of movement, you're rajas. And this is why modern yoga actually isn't yoga. So the magic already starts when you do asana. The word asana in itself means standing still. Standing still posture. Asana does not mean exercising or moving no, it means standing still. As means still. Stillness. And yet most people who do yoga move. In contradiction with the meaning of us. Now, remember what I told you? I was just doing some simple asanas with the basketball coach, and it felt like magic. It felt like a healing power flowing through my veins, my battered body. It made me intrigued. It made me want to find out more, and it made me start practicing yoga that very evening, based on a book, Teach Yourself Yoga. Why? Because traditional yoga is based on asana, standing still. So you take on a pose, and the book says, try to build up to 1 minute of no movement. It doesn't say repeat 10 times, it says try to stand still. Now, many yoga teachers will say, they walk around the room and they say, relax. Yeah, you recognize that. Relax. While you are doing an asana. They say, relax. Is that correct? No, because when you relax, there is tamas. When you move, there is rajas. We have a problem here. They don't understand that asana is standing still, so no movement, but you are actively engaged. So, if I do a triangle pose, I'm not relaxing, that is tamas. I actively engage. So I'm standing still, no movement, while actively engaged. Tamas, while standing still. Rajas, because of actively engaging. And that is when the magic happens. It's so simple, people don't believe it. People don't believe how powerful this is, how transformative this is. And you have to do it in silence. No music and no teacher talking. Why? Because if there are external distractions, you don't feel yourself anymore. You don't hear your mind processes anymore. And that is when people, for example, get hurt, that they tear a muscle or hurt a joint or overstretch. Why? Because they are not connected with themselves. That is why we need to practice in silence. I'm talking a lot now, but when we do yoga, I don't. I just indicate which exercise to do, and in the course of it, we have a course that is a professional course. I do have to pay attention to the alignment. For the rest, hands off. Because you have to feel it, you have to live it. So when you introduce yoga into your life, the fluctuations between tamas and rajas condition become less and less. Life is dynamic, so it's never just one straight line of total harmony. That is just not realistic. But the fluctuations between the two conditions become less and less. As a result, you sleep much better and deeper. And in the daytime, you're much more economic and efficient with your energy. Make sense? You understand the difference between modern yoga and traditional yoga? If you understand this and you experience it also, I have throughout the years, I've had thousands of students who came after experiencing yoga in the modern way with movement and what have you. And I've heard many times feedback from students who practiced with me for an extended period of time and then move on with their lives. I work a lot with expats, with foreigners. They move on. They try to find something to continue to practice. And then they contacted me and they say, I tried this kind of yoga or that kind of yoga and it just doesn't feel right. Once you experience this, you can't go back anymore. You can't go back to the old way, to the modern way. I mean, because it just doesn't feel right. And I do like exercise myself. I like walking, I like cycling, I used to swim, but when I do yoga, it's yoga. And when I do exercise, it's separate from the yoga. Now, this is a little bit sacrilege, because this is not yoga, this is Chinese actually. You know, you know this? Everybody knows this, that's why we use it. Wait, I forgot something. What are we looking at here is something that people like as a decoration. Some people have an earring with a yin-yang model, or a necklace with a hanger, or tattoo, or on the wall a nice decoration with a yin-yang model. And we kind of like this. It looks mysterious and intriguing, But what does it mean? It means harmony. And talking about harmony, we do not realize how important harmony is. Ancient people knew. In every language you find the importance of harmony. Korean people, when you meet them, they say, "안녕하세요." What does that mean? It means, are you in peace? Peace is harmony. So ancient people knew how important harmony was, so important that every time we meet somebody, we ask, "Are you in harmony?" Which implies, are you in harmony, or are you disturbed, or are you suffering from something? Harmony. Amen. Christians say Amen. In the Middle East, they say Amin. It means harmony. Just like Om in yoga means harmony. So all continents, all cultures at their foundation knew how important harmony was. We live in a world where most people are disconnected from the importance of harmony. But what are we looking at here? It is a nice decoration, but it has a meaning. Ancient people didn't care about decoration unless it had a meaning. And it's the meaning that is more interesting than the decoration. Dark and light. Everybody can see that. But that is how far most people's perception goes. But harmony is not two-dimensional. If you look a little closer, you see there is a light part and a dark part. Yin and yang. But look closer and you see that the yang part carries the characteristic of the yin part with this eye. And the yin part carries characteristic of the yang part with the eye. So the eye is not there to make it look mysterious or interesting. It has a meaning. How do you translate this to the human being? I am. If I look in the mirror at least, I am a man. But I have feminine characteristics. Many men don't like their feminine characteristics, so they oppress them, which gives other problems. Toxic masculinity. Everybody, especially women, are suffering from that all the time. Everywhere you go. It's because of this. I have no problem with that at all. That's why many men, gay men, often think that I am gay. Because I do not oppress my feminine characteristics. But most men do. That's just the reality. You look in the mirror, you're a female, you're a woman. Women have masculine characteristics, just like men have feminine characteristics. If you're balanced, you have both. And talking about gay, in a gay relationship, you can see that one person has more feminine characteristics, while the other has more masculine characteristics. It is because of that that they match. Because if you put two people together who are both masculine or both feminine, it won't work. They don't connect, they don't match. It's the same. I am not gay, so I like women. But if a woman is too feminine, not in line with my particular balance of femininity and masculinity, I won't feel an attraction. In the same way, if the woman is too masculine, not in line with my typical balance, I won't feel an attraction. And in the same way, a very masculine man typically feels attracted to a very girlish woman. That is why you see tough guys, gangsters, macho men, they're always surrounded by very girlish types. But you also have men that are typically very girlish. And when they are in a relationship, they're in a relationship with a woman who is quite masculine, with strong masculine character. That is the secret of harmony. This is not only just about yin and yang and Shiva and Shakti, it explains how we function. And if you understand how that works, next time when you feel attracted to a person, you will look at it from a different point of view. Because you will understand that if you are attracted just by the outlook of a person, while ignoring their typical characteristics, you set yourself up for failure. And if you understand how that works, you can just avoid a lot of heartbreak in relationships. But I told you already, this is not yoga. We use it because everybody knows it. Now you know a little bit more about the meaning behind the symbolism of the decoration. What yoga uses is a character that you find in a decoration or a drawing of the heart chakra. And it is something that you probably have seen, that you recognize. There is a triangle that points up. Shakti energy rises from the bottom up. Then there is another triangle that points down. This is the yoga symbol for harmony. Do you recognize this? It's the Star of David. You find this in the flag of Israel. The triangle pointing up is Shakti energy, representing Shakti energy. The triangle pointing down is Shiva energy. Now, why is this a symbol of the heart chakra? Because opening up of the heart, unconditional love, that is the highest development in yoga. That you become compassionate for the world around you, animals, plants, and humans alike. And it is in the heart chakra because when you practice yoga, and more harmony occurs in the practitioner. This is one of the first developments that takes place already in the very beginning of your yoga practice. You become more sensitive. That is the result of Shiva and Shakti balancing out on the level of the heart chakra. In yoga, that phenomenon is called ananda. And if you pay attention, there are many advanced yogis that have ananda in their name. Right? Why? Because the name reflects the level of development of the yogi. So throughout life or throughout their yoga career, so to speak, their name changes. And eventually they end up having Ananda in their name. Swami Yoga Anand Saraswati. Ananda means bliss. But it really means love. The first thing that you will experience transforming in you as a result of practicing yoga correctly is you become more sensitive. You start to care more about family members, about pets, about nature. It's a very natural development that takes place almost immediately that you start practicing yoga. Does not happen when you do vinyasa. It happens with yoga the boring way, the traditional way. And also very important to understand the incredible power of stable energy is when you look at children. Maybe you remember when you were in elementary school, there are children that they are brilliant. At the end of the semester, and they do this in Korea. In Korea, they make a score list and they rank the students from number 1 to the last. It's very harmful. It hurts children, except the one that is on the top. But besides that, there are children that are just doing very well intellectually. They soak up everything that the teacher throws at them. They do their homework. They don't have to be forced to do it. They just do it because they are interested, because they want to. But opposed to that, there are children that can't come along with the tempo of learning. They stay behind. Sometimes they have to double a grade. Do it again because their score is just too low. And we say, this student is bad. They're dumb. They're stupid. The difference from our point of view is not the one child being very smart and the other being dumb. Because if you look closer, you see totally different environment in which they grow up. The child that excels intellectually in class comes from a very stable, loving household. The parents love each other in a harmonious way. There are no lies, no manipulation, no fights. And there is routine, fixed routine. You wake up, there is a breakfast and a cup of tea. You come from school, there is a tea with a cookie. Every evening there is dinner on the table. And every day you go to bed the same time, and every morning you wake up the same time. Boring, very powerful. Those children are so stable, they're not distracted by all kinds of anxieties and fears and all kinds of restlessness. So all their energy, like the laser beam, goes into their study, into their intellectual endeavor. The child that seems to be dumb, the child that stays behind, if you look at their background, they come from a disrupted family, from an unstable family. The parents fight with each other, in front of the children even. So the children, they can't handle that because their intellect cannot rationalize what is happening. All they experience is fear. Like a dog that is being beaten all the time, they just start functioning based on fear. All their energy gets scattered. They can't concentrate, they can't focus anymore. And not only that, they never know when they have their next meal. Some mornings they wake up and there is a meal, breakfast, but some mornings their mom says or their dad says, I have a headache or I'm too busy, why don't you just go to school? And the child just there is no laser beam, there is no concentration, power of concentration. And that is why they stay behind. And when you understand that as a teacher, you know that you can, at least to some extent, you cannot change their you cannot change their home situation. But if you treat them as dumb, you just make it worse. What you can do is give them some confidence, give them some stability in the class environment. And they will start doing better. So it's all about energy. So for me, it has always been a dream to teach yoga in prison or something like that. My limitation in Korea is I'm not fluent in Korean, so it never really happened. It never really took off. I focus on the courses that I do. But people who end up in prison, most of them are disturbed. They're not evil. They are just disturbed, which led them to behavior that made them end up in prison. And yoga can salvage those people. Yoga can help those people to redeem themselves. Very valuable. And this, I was a disturbed. I come from a big family, 7 kids. My mom and dad didn't really get along with each other. They divorced when I was only 13 years old. And it kind of derailed me. My older siblings, already being more intellectually developed, they were able to rationalize it. But it kind of derailed me for a couple of years. I ended up in a very dark hole. And very interestingly, when I was about 16 years old, I had suffered a couple of years being lost, basically. I was sick and tired of that. I was sick and tired of being unhappy. I just wanted to be happy again, like I was when I was a young kid. So, at some point I asked myself, if not this, then what do I want? And when you ask many people what they want success. They want to be rich. They want to have a motorcycle or a car. But my answer to myself, to my question of what do I really want, is I just want to be happy. Then the next question came, how do you do that? And the answer to that was very simple. Just be yourself again. And that's what ever since then I've been trying to do. Just going back to be that young, naive, playful, enthusiastic, active boy. Just being myself again. And yoga helped enormously in that sense. Yoga helps you to connect with your heart's content. You know, there are yoga teachers who say, connect your body with your mind and your soul. And they sound very mysterious when they say that. And you think, wow, that is nice. Well, how do you do that? You've heard that, huh? Teachers saying, connect your body with your mind and your soul. I know, many do that. But if you ask them, teacher, I want to connect my body with my mind and my soul. What do I need to do? Please explain how I can do that. They have no answer. And you know, it sounds very mysterious and unobtainable, but it's very easy and simple. A human being, from the yoga point of view, exists out of several bodies. There is the physical body. Enveloping the physical body is the mental body. And enveloping those two bodies is the spiritual body. And it's about harmony. Ancient people, because they didn't spend 15, 20 years in compulsory education, their intellectual capacity did not develop, but they were physically very strong. So, their physical body contained all their energy. You have an amount of energy that is limited, and it's all in the physical body. Now, what is the current situation with many people? You have the physical body enveloped by the mental body, enveloped by the spiritual body. The current situation with many contemporary people, modern people, is this. The intellect is very highly developed. All their energy is in the intellectual body, the mental body. But their physical body is weak. I've had throughout the years parents come to my yoga class, not this one, the regular classes I had in the past, and asking for help. They have a 15-year-old son or daughter who is doing very well in school, but gets sick. And the first thing that you do as a parent when your child gets sick all the time, or is very weak, you go to the clinic, to the doctor. And the doctor will say, you're in the wrong place. Your child needs to get off their chair. Because they study all day, and when they don't study, they're in front of the computer or the TV. They don't move. And the doctors understand that. The child needs to move. So they say, your child needs to exercise. I can't give you a medicine. Your child just needs to go next door. There is a gym. So, but if you have experienced exercise, when you're out of shape, exercise hurts. And children, also teenagers, they do not have the capacity to reason. So if something doesn't feel good, they just don't want to do it. Even if the parent or the trainer says, listen, just build it up slowly and next week you will feel better. A child doesn't care about such advice. They just say, my leg hurt. I don't want to do it. So first they go to a gym. Private trainer, they pay extra money, private trainer, make a special program, and the child just hates it because it hurts. So the last step they often take is they go to the yoga studio. I had classes in a huge gym. I've had my studio there for 8 years in World Gym. One of the biggest in Korea, 5,000 pyong. So at last they come to the studio and they say, please take care of my child. They always only come once. They never come back. Why? Because yoga also hurts if your body is not in a good condition. Because stretching those muscles, that just hurts. I try to guide them, tell them to take it slow, not push too hard, but it just feels uncomfortable. They don't come back. This explains why. And it's actually very sad because try to imagine in what kind of physical condition they will be when they're 40 or 50. You have to lay the foundation for your physical health at old age. You have to lay the foundation when you're young. If you don't, it's too late. Now, I'm trying to explain how do you connect the body with the mind and the soul and why that is actually a thing. Just like with tamas and rajas and sattva, there are very few people who are in sattva. Just because we either move or rest. We have a special approach to yoga that leads to sattva. Much easier than it sounds. Just do it right and it's happening before you even know it. And the proof that it's happening is that sense of well-being that you feel with each exercise that you do. So, this is the yogi, physically active in a controlled way. Mentally active, contemplation, study. There is a reason why there is this saying that healthy mind in a healthy body. If your body is healthy, mentally you function better. If they both function well, relatively in harmony with one another, something special happens. That is where the spiritual body opens up. And as you see, in both situations here, the spiritual body does not open up. Here you have the body, the mind, and the soul connected. How does that work? Why is this important actually? Many people think that spirituality is a luxury. Is it? True spirituality? We understand the physical body. The physical body is everything that is related to movement. And the glands and the organs contained in our body, their activity and productivity. That's the physical body, easy to understand for most people. The mental body, that's the intellect. That is how you can understand, how you can reason, how you can rationalize. Easy to understand. What does the spiritual body do? Does the spiritual body do something? Yes, it's very important. Yoga, our yoga is called Raja Yoga. Raja means king. What does a king need? What does a leader need? A manager, a leader, a boss, a king, or a queen, of course. What do leaders need? What are typical leader qualities? Insight, wisdom, intuition, fair judgment. The spiritual body locates what we call royal characteristics. That is why it's called Raja Yoga. It's a training for leaders. And in the past it was truly used as a training to prepare princes and princesses to become kings and queens. And still, in the modern world that we live in, the Netherlands, I'm from the Netherlands, the Netherlands has a royal family, royal house, the British. There are still old royal houses throughout the world. If you look at how they raise their children, they prepare them in a very balanced way, in a very calm and quiet, peaceful environment for this reason. So that they develop the royal characteristics needed for a true leader. Can you give an example of a leader that does not possess those qualities? Yeah. Putin. Putin is a gangster. Donald Trump. I kind of like to stay away from politics because people have different opinions, but it is an example too good to ignore. Because you can very clearly see how people function. Many people didn't like Obama, Barack Obama. I liked him very much. You know why? Because he had a heart. And as a president, you can never please everybody. But he went around the world to restore harmony, relationships, internationally, that were destroyed by the previous president, Bush. Barack Obama had 8 years to bring harmony, and what happens in America affects the whole world. He brought back harmony again on a global level, only to be destroyed by 4 disastrous years of a perfect example of a person who has none whatsoever, any kind of royal characteristics. And Biden is old, and people say he's too old. But he did exactly what Barack Obama did. He goes around the world, he restores harmony with other world leaders that Trump very violently and rudely destroyed. The unity that you see among NATO, Europe, the Western world, the democratic world, including South Korea, Japan, that is because there are leaders who truly do have those characteristics. It leads to harmony. And harmony leads to societies that thrive, not only economically, but also in terms of well-being of the population. Everybody benefits from that. A country that is ruled by leaders without leading characteristics, without the qualities of the Raja or the king, the whole population is suffering. Example, Russia. While they have tremendous natural wealth, resources, people are suffering. Only a couple of people in Moscow and St. Petersburg are rich, and the rest is poor, suffering. Look at European countries. European countries, everybody is relatively, comfortable. Why? Because there are leaders that are truly there to lead. And they try to do that in a very balanced and fair way. There is no chaos, there is stability. And like with the child in school, when there is stability, a society starts to thrive. But when there is instability, lack of trust, society turns into chaos and everybody suffers. So you can see that on all levels, from a little child to just the global community. So spirituality, or the spiritual body, that's not a luxury as many people think. The more people function on this level, the less misery there will be in this world. You will notice as a yoga practitioner also that the benefits that you have do not only limit to you. When I started practicing yoga, I started caring for my family. My mom, who had suffered so much, my brothers, my sisters. I started organizing events with Christmas. Go to some kind of performance, and then after the performance have a nice dinner. Just bring everybody together again. I just did that very naturally, from my heart. I started taking my brothers on vacations to get them away from their self-destructive behavior, drinking and doing drugs and what have you. Just naturally. When you become more harmonious, the people around you start to thrive, to benefit from that as well. I've had at the end of courses in the past, we used to have a lot of military personnel from the army base. And at the end of the course, you know, sometimes you get thank you notes from the students. I've got thank you notes from the partner of the students, saying, thanking me for how much yoga had improved the relationship at home with the partner and the sibling, the children. That is the magic of yoga. That is also why we call our yoga magic wand yoga. That's not just a frivolous name, because yoga, done correctly, truly leads to transformation. It's magic. Do you have any questions? And listen, this model of the whole human being, it may seem out of reach and very difficult to achieve. It's not. Anybody who starts practicing yoga based on the old tradition of yoga starts to connect. It's just not something that comes with bells and whistles. It's a subtle process. But if you look back 1 year and compare your life, your experience with 1 year ago, you see that there is a considerable change taking place. It's because of this. This is explaining what that transformation is about. You become a more complete human being, a more balanced, harmonious human being. Now, one more thing that I always put on the board, but I think the point is already clear. Yoga is a science of control. It's all about energy. If energy is scattered, it's useless. If it's focused, it leads to wonderful results. Well, this is a house. This is a house. But it's not just a house, it's a house in Siberia. In Siberia, very cold, right? So what do? You install a boiler. So you can heat up the house. So when you come home, you want the house to be warm, cozy, comfortable. So you turn up the heater to 10. And you burn a lot of fuel, energy, to warm up the house. But this is an old house. It has single window panes. There is no insulation in the roof and the walls. So what happens is when you generate all that heat, burning all that valuable fuel, which is your energy source, of course. This is just a symbol for a human being and how they function. All that heat is lost. And the house is never really comfortable. Even though the thermostat is setting at 10 is set at 10, and you're spending so much money on fuel, never really comfortable. So what do? The smart human being ask for a contractor to come and install double or triple layer windows and put insulation in between the walls and the roof. So the house is very well insulated. Now you come home and you put the thermostat at 3, the house warms up and the heat stays inside. And now that you're not losing all that valuable energy, the house becomes very nice, comfortable, and cozy, while the energy bill at the end of the month is reasonable because you're not wasting so much fuel trying to warm up a house that is very poorly insulated. This is kind of what yoga does. Yoga helps you to insulate yourself through consciousness so that you, with time, waste less and less valuable energy. And you know, energy has a very natural and typical characteristic. When you have much of it, without scattering and wasting it, it will very naturally find a way to manifest. That is when people start undertaking new endeavors, new adventures. And I've seen this with many of my former students, that they move on and they start their own business. Not just a business, but a business with a heart. Something that they would never have dared dream of before becomes possible. Because all that spare energy that they have as a result of their practice of yoga will find a way to manifest one way or another, because that's what energy does. When people are very lethargic and inactive, it is because there is no spare energy. They use the energy that they have for just basic tasks, to basically just sustain themselves. And there is no spare energy for any kind of out-of-the-box activities or endeavors. And that's what happens with yogis in a very natural way. And little by little, you not only transform yourself, you transform your life and the direction that you go in. It's all about energy. That's how it works. Questions? Now, if you read the event information, you see that I somewhere make the claim that if you attend this, just one single workshop, you know, not only know, but understand more about yoga than most certified yoga teachers. Try, if you are a member of a yoga class, try and ask your teacher just some simple questions. And you will see that everything that you learned today, they don't know. They don't understand actually what yoga is about. All right. If you have no question, let's have a short break. And then we will do a short asana practice, 20-25 minutes, in a traditional way. And we finish with a 5-minute meditation. So let's have a short break, maybe restroom break. And then we will continue in 5 minutes. All right. Thank you.